When my daughter looked into my eyes and said, "You're not my mother anymore," I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Inside me, everything just went silent like the house when the power goes out. That night, I sat by the window, watching the rain draw soft lines on the glass. Each drop looked like a memory sliding down, one after the other, disappearing into the dark. It was strangely quiet, both outside and in. My name is Sarah, I'm 53. For most of my life, I thought being a mother meant giving everything: your sleep, your time, your dreams. It was a role I embraced with my entire being. Emily was my only child. Our home used to smell of pancakes and laughter every morning. She'd jump on my bed, her little arms wrapped around my neck, and whisper, "You're the best mom in the world." Those were the words I lived for. But time changes everything, doesn't it? When she turned 16, the laughter faded. She spent more and more time in her room, a world away behind her headphones. Our breakfasts grew quiet. I kept telling myself, it's just a phase. She'd come back. When Emily left for university, I was so proud and absolutely terrified. Standing on that train platform, she hugged me and promised, "Mom, don't cry. I'll call every day." And for a while she did. Her calls were like a lifeline. Then, slowly, the calls became less frequent until they stopped. I found out she was getting married, not from her, but from a friend. The news hit me like a physical blow. When she finally called, her voice was distant. "Mom, I didn't know how you'd react," she said, as if I wouldn't have celebrated her happiness. At her wedding, I sat in the back row, smiling through tears as she walked down the aisle. She never came to sit with me, not even for a moment. I felt like a stranger at my own daughter's life event. After the wedding, she moved again, a new city, a new life. When they visited, her husband always called me Mrs. Harris. It was polite, of course, but it felt like a wall being built. Brick by brick, I just smiled. Even when it felt like I was being erased, piece by piece, from my own family picture. When my husband, David, passed away, she came to the funeral. She cried, but her hug felt formal, obligatory, like a handshake between colleagues. She left early, saying she had to get back. I stood there under my umbrella, watching her walk away, feeling a different kind of loss all over again. Years later, she called, her voice trembling. "Mom, I'm pregnant." I cried with pure joy, thinking this was it, this was our chance to reconnect. But when the baby came, I wasn't invited. I saw my granddaughter's picture for the first time on social media. A beautiful baby girl with Emily's eyes. I just sat there, scrolling through photos, wiping away silent tears. Then one day, she came to visit, holding baby Lily. The moment I held that child in my arms, it felt like life itself was flowing back into me. Emily whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom." And in that moment, I let myself believe we'd finally found our way back to each other. The hope was overwhelming. But soon she drifted again. The calls stopped. The texts went unanswered. So I baked her favorite apple pie, the one I used to make for her birthdays, and drove to her house. Her husband opened the door, looking surprised. "Mrs. Harris." "Now's not a good time." And there was Emily standing behind him, holding Lily. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She just said softly, "Mom, please don't make this harder." The door clicked shut, leaving me on a cold doorstep in the falling snow. After that, she moved again. She didn't tell me where. I filled my days with gardening and silence. It's funny, the habits you can't break. Sometimes I'd set 2 plates for dinner, then quietly put one away. The silence in the house became my constant companion. I started writing her letters I knew I would never mail. In those pages, we still talked. I told her about my day, about the garden, about how much I missed her. I kept them in a wooden box, right beside the stories she wrote for me when she was a little girl, back when I was her whole world. Then a few months ago, she came again. No call, no warning. She just appeared at my door. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her tone serious. We sat in the living room, the one she grew up in. "Mark thinks it's better if we take some space, ... From you." My heart sank. I whispered, "I just want to be part of your life, Emily." She looked away, out the window. "You don't know how to let go." And then came the words that stopped my world. "You're not my mother anymore." I didn't argue. I didn't fight. A part of me had already broken. I just smiled, a trembling, broken smile. "If that's what you need to believe, Emily." "I understand." She left, closing the door softly behind her. And that was the day my world went completely and utterly quiet. I still remember those mornings when everything felt warm and simple. My daughter would come into the kitchen, rubbing her sleepy eyes, asking, "What's for breakfast, Mama?" And I'd smile, pretending I hadn't already been awake for hours. I'd say, "Your favorite paratha with honey." She'd grin, sit beside me, and start telling me her dreams. That was our world, just laughter, simple meals, and a kind of love that didn't need words. Life moved fast after that. She grew up before I even realized it. Suddenly, she was walking in a graduation gown and then in a wedding dress. I stood there smiling for photos, holding back tears. I told myself, this is what every mother dreams of, seeing her child start a new chapter. But deep inside, I also felt something changing, something I couldn't quite name. Her husband, Adil, was kind at first. Respectful, polite, always calling me Auntie G. I liked him. Truly I did. But after the wedding, I began to feel like a guest in my own daughter's life. The phone calls got shorter, the visits less frequent. And when she did come home, she seemed distracted. One evening, I called her. She didn't pick up. The next day, she texted, "Sorry, Mama, was busy." Just 4 words. That was the start of the silence. I didn't blame her. I told myself she was just busy with her new married life. But a mother can feel when she's slowly fading from her child's heart. The first argument came like a shadow. I was visiting for a few days, and one evening, I noticed her looking tired. I said softly, "You should rest more. You look pale." She sighed. "Mama, I'm fine. Please don't start." Her tone was sharp, unfamiliar. I sat there confused. "I didn't mean to upset you," I whispered. But she had already turned away. That was the first time I truly felt like an outsider in her house. Time passed. I tried to help around the house. Cooking, cleaning, anything to feel useful. But every time I did, she'd say, "Mama, please rest. We can manage. That one word always stung. I started to feel more and more like a guest, polite smiles, but no warmth. I'd stay quiet during dinner, smile when spoken to, and cry silently at night, alone in my room. One evening, Adil came to me gently. "Auntie G," he said, "you know we both love you, right?" I nodded. "Of course, Beta," he continued. "It's just, the house is small. We're thinking of having some privacy. Maybe you could stay at your sister's for a while?" My heart froze. Privacy. I smiled to hide my pain. "Of course, Beta. Whatever makes you both happy." He thanked me. And I nodded again, pretending I didn't feel my heart breaking into a million pieces. That night, I packed my clothes. Slowly, carefully. Every dress carried a memory. The blue shawl, she gave it to me on my last birthday. The teacup, her favorite, from our morning talks. I wanted to leave everything there, but also take everything with me. Before leaving, I looked at her photo on the wall and whispered, "Be happy, my child." She didn't say much when I left, just a short, stiff hug. "Take care, Mama," I nodded. "You too." The car door closed. I looked out of the window, watching her fade away in the rearview mirror. That image, her standing at the door, arms folded, still visits me in my dreams. Back home, silence became my only company. No laughter, no footsteps, no voice calling, "Mama." Just me and memories. I'd sit by the window, waiting for a phone call that never came. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly, I started to forget the sound of her laughter. One morning, a letter arrived. Her handwriting familiar, careful. My hands trembled as I opened it. "Mama, I'm sorry if I ever hurt you. But please understand, I'm trying to balance my life." There was no "I miss you," no "I love you," just distance written in ink. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept wondering, where did I go wrong? Was I too loving? Too protective? Too present? Mothers don't expect perfection, only presence. And yet, here I was surrounded by silence, haunted by questions that had no answers. Months later, she visited. The doorbell rang, and there she was. She looked tired but beautiful, just like always. I smiled, trying not to cry. She said, "Mama, I brought you some sweets." I said, "You didn't have to, Beta. Your visit is enough." We sat quietly, pretending everything was fine. But between every word, there was a silence too loud to ignore. As she left again, I whispered under my breath, "Maybe love changes shape, but it never disappears." I wanted to believe that. I really, really did. This story is a reminder of the silent sacrifices many mothers make. If it touched your heart, please share it with someone you love. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that connect us all. My birthday came that year like any other day. I baked a small cake for myself, just to feel something. The clock kept ticking. Morning turned to afternoon, and then to night. No phone call, no message. I stared at the silent phone, telling myself she must be busy. But deep down, I knew she had forgotten. Or maybe she just didn't remember the woman I used to be in her life. That night, the phone finally rang. My heart raced. "Hello, Beta," her voice was distant. "Mama, Adil and I were thinking, maybe you shouldn't visit for a while." "Why, my child?" I asked softly. "Because it's better this way. You get too emotional." "It makes things tense," I paused, trying to breathe quietly. "All right," I said, "if that makes you comfortable." "Thanks, Mama," she replied, and hung up. The dial tone echoed in the room, like silence had found a sound of its own. A few months later, she came unannounced. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling. "Mama," she said, "can I stay here for a few days?" I opened my arms without a word. Sometimes love doesn't ask questions. It just opens the door. I made her tea just like old times. For 2 days, she slept, cried, and said very little. I didn't ask what happened, I just stayed close, cooking her favorite meals. On the third morning, she finally spoke. "Mama," she whispered, "Adil and I had a fight. He said terrible things." I held her hand. "It's all right, my child. Every marriage has storms. You'll get through this." She looked at me, eyes filled with guilt. "I told him," she said slowly. "But maybe he was right. Maybe you interfere too much." My hands froze. "You said that?" I asked gently. She looked down. "I'm sorry, Mama." The words stung not because she said them, but because she believed them. That evening, she packed her bag again. I asked, "Are you sure you're ready to go back?" She nodded. "Yes, Mama, Adil and I talked. He said he'll come tomorrow to pick me up." I smiled faintly, though my heart felt heavy. "That's good," I said. "You belong with him." She looked at me strangely. "Mama," she said quietly, "I think it's time you stop worrying about me so much." I said softly, "That's impossible, my child. A mother never stops worrying." She hesitated, then said the words I will never forget. "You're not my mother anymore." The room fell silent. I didn't cry, I didn't speak. I just stood there, staring at her face, the same face I once kissed goodnight every single day. I wanted to scream, to ask why, but no words came out. Instead, I smiled, a small, broken smile. "If that's what makes you happy," I whispered, "then I'm no one to stop you." She looked down, tears in her eyes, and walked away. The door closed softly like a full stop at the end of my motherhood. The next few days were a blur. I cleaned the house, watered the plants, cooked food I couldn't eat. Everything looked the same, but felt so different. The walls seemed to whisper her laughter. The air still carried her perfume. But she was gone, not in distance, but in heart. And that hurts more than any goodbye. I wrote her a letter that night. "My dearest daughter, I will always be your mother, even if you don't call me one. When you were born, I promised to love you no matter what." That promise doesn't break just because hearts do. I sealed the letter, but I never sent it. Some things are meant to stay between a mother and her silence. Days passed, and peace slowly returned. I started finding small joys again, watering flowers, watching the sunrise, making tea for one. I realized something: maybe motherhood doesn't end when your child walks away. Maybe it just changes its shape. You stop being the center of their world, but they remain the center of yours. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. Her name on the screen. My heart skipped. The message read, "Mama, can I visit you tomorrow?" I stared at it for a long time before replying. "Of course, my child. The door is always open." And for the first time in months, I smiled not with pain, but with quiet hope. When she came, she didn't say anything. She just hugged me tightly, silently. I felt her tears on my shoulder. I didn't ask for an apology. I just whispered, "Welcome home, my child." Because forgiveness is not something you give, it's something you become. Looking back now, I realize love is never perfect. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's quiet. But a mother's love, it never leaves, it only waits. If you've ever hurt someone who loved you unconditionally, go back. Say the words before time takes them away. Because once silence grows between hearts, it becomes harder to cross. I'm no longer the mother who waited by the phone. I'm the mother who prays, forgives, and loves quietly. And maybe that's what real love is. Loving even when no one is watching. Loving without needing to be called mama. Just loving because that's who I am. Thank you for listening to this story. If this touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Fox Question, where every story is a whisper from the heart. Because sometimes, the quietest voices carry the deepest truths.